Today is August 19th, 2023. I'm Alan Zundell, and this is Political Dharma. Today I'm returning to Dr. West's campaign for the presidency, trying to seek the nomination of the Green Party of the United States. And I've covered this some shows in the recent past, and I'm going to be continuing to cover this campaign as we go on. I'm going to look at three aspects of it today. First, a few days ago, the question was raised online whether Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Dr. West might form some kind of unity ticket together, running either as independents or both of them on the Green Party ticket in case Kennedy is not able to gain the nomination of the Democratic Party. So I'm going to play a clip from Sabi Saab's YouTube channel where she raises this question, and then I'm going to give some of my thoughts about that. Second, a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, no, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, I tried to answer the question, would Dr. West act as a spoiler in the 2024 presidential election? I was analyzing a poll that Newsweek relied on to make a case that it looks like it's going to be a spoiler, but I took that poll apart, said, it's exaggerated. There's no way we can tell at this point. But let's ask what Dr. West has to say about that himself. He did appear online on the Stephen Smith show, and he answered that question directly. Aren't you concerned about acting as a spoiler in this race? So that's the second thing. Third thing, Dr. West appeared to the Green Party of the United States national meeting and answered questions from Greens there. We'll be playing several clips from that, him speaking to them, see what he had to say to answer questions about things like getting ballot access on more states and supporting other Green Party candidates, and whether he's going to stay the course or drop out at the last minute and endorse Joe Biden like Bernie Sanders did. So let's start off with Sabi Saab's show on YouTube. A couple of days ago, she raised this question about Robert F. Kennedy and Cornel West running together on a unity ticket. Let's see how she brought it up and what she was basing it on and what she had to say.
That makes me wonder, because of all those things, is this the reason why RFK Jr. put out this statement? Cornel West is a truth teller. I'm glad he's part of the presidential race because he's a thoughtful, brave, compassionate, and honest person who sees how devastating America's forever wars have been to this country and the world, and who understands how corrupt corporate influence has hijacked our government and both political parties, especially the Democratic Party elites. And he goes on to say here, Dr. West brings civility, decency, and respect into politics, qualities sadly lacking in today's political culture. His candidacy can help raise the level of political discourse in this country. Hashtag Kennedy 24. So, what was that all about? Is it possible that he could be considering, if he doesn't win the Democratic primary, which he won't, I'm just keeping it real, is it possible that he may be considering a third party or independent run? And if that is the case, and we'll go ahead and bring up the poll whenever you're ready, Eric. If that's the case, and he is considering that, I don't think he would come out and say it if he is, but he is considering that. Do you think there could be a ticket with RFK Jr. and Cornel West? If RFK Jr. loses the primary, should Cornel West and RFK Jr. run together as Greens?
Okay, so she asked the question, why is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. saying these nice things about Cornel West right now? And I guess the assumption is that he's trying to put out feelers to see if there's a possibility that Dr. West will, want to team up with him in some way. I don't see any indication of that. They're both running for their respective parties' nomination right now, and I don't see any signs that they're going to suddenly switch gears on that. So it may be simply that they're acquaintances. I know that. I know they're friendly with each other and that they respect each other in different ways. So maybe Kennedy was just giving a shout out to Dr. West to, encourage him in his run and say, we're both fighting for some of the same things here, especially things like getting corporate corruption out of the government, getting corporate influence out of the government, and countering the movements towards neo-fascism, improving our and trying to improve our democratic process so that doesn't happen. So they have a lot of things in common in their campaigns and platforms. Maybe it's just giving them a shout out as a fellow traveler in arms. But more importantly, a reason why they could not team up together if this campaign goes too long in the direction it's currently going in is something called sore loser laws. And most of the states in the United States have sore loser laws, which ban candidates who had their name on the ballot for the primary of a major party to then get their name on the ballot in the general election as an independent or as another party candidate. Almost all the states in the union have laws like that. I'm putting in the video a picture up of the map of the United States with all the states that do and do not have sore loser laws. It's a little confusing to look at because some of those colors are meant to indicate whether or which major party, if either of them dominated the state at the time the law was passed. But more importantly, if you look at the yellow states, those are the ones in which states do not have a sore loser law. And we see only 3 of them: Iowa, Connecticut, and New York. So if only 3 states don't have sore loser laws, that means any state in which Robert Kennedy's name appears on the ballot as a nominee for the primary election in 2024 are states where he cannot get his name on the ballot either as an independent or as another party candidate for the general election if he loses the Democratic nomination. So that's one big reason why I think this is not going to happen. If they really have to make decisions pretty soon before the names Kennedy's name starts appearing on ballots around the country. And if he hasn't planned for that, if he's not already in the process of doing that, then his campaign is even more competent than you could imagine. So probably has already filed for that in a number of the states and will do it soon. Another consideration is simply whether the Greens would welcome Kennedy if he tried to come on board with Dr. West and either become the presidential nominee or vice presidential nominee. Right there, you say he couldn't have his name on the ticket for the Green Party, so there'd be a lot of suspicion that way. Why put him there? But also, Greens don't like carpetbaggers who are just trying to use their ballot line in order to get an election. Why? Well, show some loyalty to the party. Show some desire to build up the party, not simply come in because you couldn't get it somewhere else. Even if he has a lot of things in common with the Green Party, they do not look kindly on that, and they would be leery of that. Now, Dr. West, as we're going to see, he's much more engaged with the Green Party than Kennedy is. So, he still has to seek the nomination himself and get Greens to vote for him. We'll see how he's running that campaign towards the end of the show. Finally, I want to make a point about the predictability of Joe Biden getting the nomination of the Democratic Party. Yes, it looks like that's going to happen. Not only is Kennedy pretty far behind, and Marianne Williamson is even further behind in the polls, but Biden has the apparatus of the Democratic establishment behind him. Lots of big money, lots of other Democrats, important, influential Democrats, are going to support him and endorse him, including Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on the left end of the Democratic spectrum. Is about as far left as it goes. And he's got all that behind him. Plus, the Democratic primary voters are the ones who are going to be picking the nominee. If Robert Kennedy appeals to people who are independents and Republicans, it's not going to help them in the Democratic primary. So I think because Joe Biden's a long time known commodity within the Democratic Party and he's the incumbent president, Democrats are going to have any appetite for taking on a different candidate, for bringing in somebody else. But I'll caution this, which is that even though it looks like he has little chance of winning an election, you can never tell. And the example I'd give you is 1968. Some of you weren't around then. I was 16, starting to realize that I was susceptible to being drafted into the Vietnam War, which is starting to gear up hot and heavy. There were a lot of protests in 1968. But at the beginning of the year, incumbent President Lyndon Baines Johnson looked very formidable, like he would get the party nomination hands down. there was nobody running against him that had any significant national support. Everybody assumed he was riding high in the polls. Everybody assumed he would be nominated. It didn't look like there's going to be any serious challengers to him. So as the year began, he was in a place even better than Biden. Very popular in the party, except that support was eroding because of his conduct of the Vietnam War. It was eroding within the Democratic Party, it was eroding within the general public, and it was eroding most especially among young people like myself, mostly because of Vietnam. So in the New Hampshire primary, early in the process, Senator Eugene McCarthy ran against Johnson, and because McCarthy did better than expected, he didn't get more votes than Johnson, but he did better than expected, enough that it embarrassed the president and encouraged other candidates to come forward, including Robert F. Kennedy Sr., who was a nationally known figure, obviously, because his brother had been president and he had been in that administration as well as Attorney General. And he was senator from New York. So he's very well known, and his family name was known, and he was able to speak for a lot of causes that Democrats held dear, like civil rights, and captured the spirit of the anti-war movement as well, saying we needed to get out of Vietnam. And he started doing so well in the primaries that Lyndon Johnson decided to back out. And of course, Kennedy was assassinated right after he won the California primary in the summer of 1968, one of two major assassinations in the U.S., the other being Martin Luther King Jr. earlier in the year. So Hubert Humphrey ended up being the nominee of the Democratic Party, somebody nobody expected to be the nominee. He was vice president at the time, didn't even run in the primaries, but he was chosen by the people that gathered at the convention. So nobody expected that, and that's what happened. So things can happen differently than you expect. Always keep an open mind, knowing that, life is pretty unpredictable, and history has no favorites when it comes to any of us being prophets. So let's look at Stephen Smith and what he asked to Dr. West. This was a show that appeared on YouTube. Not Dr., but Stephen A. Smith. I think he mostly talks about sports, but he had Dr. West on his show and asked him directly this question about, aren't you concerned about taking away votes from Joe Biden and allowing Trump to win like he did in 2016? So let's take a listen.
Getting back to Biden, my last question in regards to him. What about those who make the argument that good and well, there's no way in hell you're going to win this election, and as a result, all you may serve to do is take votes away from Joe Biden, which ultimately gives votes to the Republican nominee? To that, Dr. Cornel West says what?
One is that we have to acknowledge that almost 40% of our fellow citizens do not vote at all. And over 2/3 of those who vote for third-party candidates say they would not even think about voting for either Democrat or Republican. So here you have a Democratic project going on. You're trying to reach people who are outside of the voting group to convince them to register and to vote, to raise their voices, to focus on poor and working people, to cut back on militarism abroad, to have some kind of accountability of the greed of the big companies and the big pharmaceutical entities and so forth. And you say, yes, there is an element of risk that a slice of those who would vote for me may have voted for Biden, but most of them wouldn't touch Biden with a 10-foot pole. Not at all. And history is unpredictable, though, brother. I'm not saying that I'm not giving up thinking I'm just looking for a small slice. We don't know what's going to happen in the next 15,
That's
16
fair.
weeks. Trump may end up in jail. Biden may end up new candidates. Let's go to the debate stage. Then let's see who actually has the strongest vision, the strongest argument, the strongest historical analysis as to how we get out of this mess. And if I get that chance, hey, brother.
So there you hear Dr. West himself. Now, I asked the same question, was it going to act as a spoiler? About a month ago, a couple of weeks ago on my video, one of my videos, and I was looking at a poll that Newsweek had relied on to say that Dr. West looked like a spoiler in this race already. And I took apart that poll, so there's no grounds in that for really making that contention yet. But what Dr. West had to say here, just to summarize, was there's a lot of voters who won't vote for either party. They either won't vote at all or they'll vote for a minor party, and they would never vote for Biden as well. He wants to reach those voters. He wants to motivate those voters and get them engaged. And he conceded, yes, there is a risk that some people who would have voted for Biden may vote for him instead. But he said that's a risk we have to take because of the crises we face. Now, to get a little more deeply into that, let's hear what Dr. West had to say when Stephen Smith asked him why he didn't instead support a candidate that he could endorse or someone other than Joe Biden. Why didn't he team up with them and partner with them to support them? Let's take a listen.
Their belief is that just let me get the Republican nomination. We'll beat the 82-year-old Joe Biden. And if he's not there, we'll beat a Kamala Harris. So that begs my next question. Rather than go the independent route, be a part of the Green Party, go up against them, knowing it's a two-party system that basically pervades the establishment and they hold dominion over the establishment, why not look at somebody like a Kamala Harris? Why not encourage somebody like a Gavin Newsom or somebody along those lines, the governor in California, and try to partner with them? Why did you decide to go that route?
Because what happens is that the milquetoast Democratic Party and the neo-fascists in the Republican Party, all Republicans are not neo-fascists, and all folk who vote for Trump are not neo-fascists. 1 out of 8 of those who voted for Trump voted for Brother Bernie Sanders. So we have to recognize how diverse his social base is, but he himself was a neo-fascist. But the Republican and Democratic parties are parasitic on each other because they both get the same big money from the big donors and big benefactors. You see, they both are tied to military expansion. You notice anytime you have debates about the defense spending, you get bipartisanship. They're supposed to be at each other's throats, but no. You get bipartisanship when those kind of issues come along. Meaning what? Meaning that both parties are parties of the corporate elite. And if we don't break that, then the neo-fascists will win, because sooner or later Republicans are going to win. And the Democrats are just a postponement of it. The Democrats are a caretaker administration, and sooner or later the fascists will win. You don't defeat fascism by going milquetoast. You defeat fascism by going directly into their face. That's like Martin Luther King Jr. depending on the moderate whites to break the back of American apartheid. If he had depended solely on them, you and I, living in the South, I know you from Hollis, Queens.
That's right.
That's a cool thing. Born in the Bronx, everything. That's a beautiful thing. But I'm a Southern brother who grew up in California, right? Born in Oklahoma. That American apartheid would still be in place, man. You got to hit it head on with vision, passion, courage, and a love of the people. That's what I don't see in the Democratic Party.
And so his answer, building on his previous answer, they weren't that close together in the video, but you can check it out yourself, Stephen A. Smith's YouTube channel, essentially was that in a lot of ways, the two parties are the same. They are not acting fast enough. What he mentioned was militarism. They're always there for raising the military budget. Neither of them ever brings it downward. But other ways you can think of it as well is both parties, both major party candidates are very friendly with Wall Street. Both parties are take big contributions from major donors and corporations. So there's, in a lot of ways, they are similar and they represent the same problem. But I also went on to say that the Republican Party, under Donald Trump, is a big danger to the future of democracy, and that is a risk. But on the other hand, that risk becomes even more serious over time if you don't have a way to address the problems that people are facing. That is, you have to get in the face of fascism and fight it directly, and not think you can sidestep it by saying, let's keep everything calm and stable and just keep going with the status quo, because the status quo is not working for people. That's why so many people are up in arms, ready to vote for someone like Donald Trump, who will overturn the system because they know they're financially vulnerable in this system. Some are even beginning to realize that climate change creates vulnerabilities for us. There's going to be major social upheavals, trying to determine where people can live safely or how to deal with the damage caused by the various storms and droughts and floods and wildfires. So you can't just stay with the status quo. There has to be dramatic change. That's what people are looking for. That's the danger of fascism, is presenting someone who says, I will make change happen. Let's forget about democracy because we're facing an emergency. and our country needs to gather together around one person who can do it. That's the danger. And if we just go with the Democrats, once again, that danger raises that over time, this is going to happen, that you got to challenge it early on, and can't simply say you're not going to stand in the way, and that's going to be, good enough. You're not going to fight them with every tool you have, and fight the underlying causes that are leading toward this. Finally, Dr. West did address some of the concerns that Green Party members may have about his candidacy and about his running for the nomination. Dr. West spoke to them at a national meeting of the Green Party. Every year, except the presidential election year, they have a national meeting where you can meet candidates and get trainings and various things. But next year, they're going to have their presidential convention to choose their nominees. So Dr. West is talking to them about his candidacy for that nomination and integrating himself into the party more fully. Let's watch some clips of him answering questions. First of all, just addressing them and saying hello, and then answering some questions about things like his plans for getting on the ballot, for getting ballot access in all the states where he does not now have ballot access. I had a previous video that you can check out about the states that the Green Party does have ballot access in. There's about 18 or 19 of them, I think, at this point. And there's a lot of them that they need to do things to get on the ballot. What is he going to do about that? And questions about things like whether he's going to support, encourage the running of other Green Party candidates, whether he's registered as a Green Party person himself, registered voter as a Green Party voter, and whether he's going to stay the course, or if in the end he's just going to drop out and maybe even endorse Joe Biden, like Bernie Sanders did. Almost called him Joe Bernie. Bernie Sanders dropping out. Are you going to stay the course all the way to the end, all the way up to the presidential election, or are you going to drop out early? So let's hear what he has to say to these people at the Green Party National Convention last 2 weeks ago, August 3rd. I think, well, it was sometime during the weekend of August 3rd to the August 5th.
Dr. West, would you like to go ahead and say a few words?
Oh, absolutely. Can you hear me all right? I can see some of the lovely faces there, and I see a lot of lovely names too. But I want to begin by just saluting each and every one of you, especially those who've been sustaining high quality leadership of this grand institution over time and space. And I especially want to thank certain very, very crucial representatives of the party who have played such an important role in its recent past. I'm thinking of Sister Jill and Brother Jamo, who really came to my rescue in a very, very magnificent way. And my beloved wife, Anahita, Dr. West, will affirm that as well. But with my blood brother, Clifton West, and Sister Nancy, and Sister Kathy, and Brother Nkosi, I mean, all of us have been able to try to come together to sustain my attempt to gain the nomination of this grand institution. But most importantly for me, as you can imagine, and I've tried to say this very clearly in the platform, that we're living at such a dim and grim moment. And I must say that magnificent lecture by Brother Peter today, oh my God, so powerful, so profound, but also so dark. And it just reminds us of what we're up against and the ways in which our backs are against the wall, and dealing with the powers that be. At times we feel that we're between a rock and a hard place, and we've got to generate the kind of vision and hope and analysis and community and solidarity that the Green Party has been doing for many decades now, but even more so now. We can really begin to talk about dismantling the American empire, to talk about unleashing democracy, and then talking about what Brother Peter highlighted so magnificently today, what it means to really save life for the planet and save the planet, as it were.
I had heard a rumor or read it somewhere that, and I think you just answered my question, that you are encouraging people to run for Senate and Congress on the Green Party line, so we can have like a slate on the ballot next year. Is that true if you should secure the nomination?
Very much so. Very much so. The more green, the merrier.
Cornel, what are your plans for ballot access?
Well, one is that we have been deeply blessed to have a magnificent brother, Rick, who is on the cutting edge. We meet with him. He keeps track of all the various efforts state by state. We already have 18. He lays out the next 18. There are many states you can't begin until January. He's keeping track of each and every one of them. You all know his track record in terms of earlier candidacies in the Green Party.
Again, if I'm putting you on the spot, I'm sorry, Brother West, are you registered green?
Well, I've actually got a registration in New Jersey, which is other with a right in green, but we're actually going to transfer it to California. That Sister Jill and Sister Anahita have been in conversation about this. And so I want to make sure that when I speak in public, people be able to see my name on that list, but not only that, but to keep the focus where it always belongs, which is to be a green is to be fundamentally committed to alleviating the suffering of oppressed people and trying to ensure that we save the planet so that life in all of its various forms can flower and flourish. So that any party is always a vehicle or conduit for focusing on the people and their suffering and their resistance. But the answer to your question is yes, Brother Bob, Mr. Blessing. Talk to you again. See your lovely smile there, brother.
One of our, I think a lot of concerns is, or at least my concern, is staying the course. I mean, so many progressives or folks who are going to like, seem like they're going to take us over the top, like Bernie bailed out on us twice. And I just really pray that you fight to the end, because you're going to be inspiring a lot of people to want to support you, and to you bail out would be really bad. And so we just really hope that you stay the course. And I believe that you will. I believe that you have that kind of compassion, and that's who you really are. But I just wanted to let you know that would be a big concern. Thank you.
And I deeply appreciate that, because you could imagine, though, brother, that because I've worked with the brother Bernie and so many others, that progressive slice of the corporate Democratic Party, that a lot of folk come at you personally and impersonally on arguments, as well as sometimes a little less rational than an argument, let me put it that way. And then, of course, the establishments are going to try to just, crush you like a cockroach. I mean, that's just, and at that point, it's a compliment to be a threat. Because what higher honor could you have is to be a threat to an establishment and to establishments that's leading toward ecological catastrophe, maybe World War III, another second Civil War. We can go on and on and on and see what happens if the establishments remain in power. But I do appreciate the heartfelt question, because there is a lot of pressure, in all honesty. There's a lot of pressure. And I intend to follow through, very much so. And that's that's going to be a burden in many ways. It's going to be a joy in other ways.
All right, then there you have it, Dr. West in his own words, and we'll be continuing to cover his campaign as we go forward, along with other topics that happen to arise that are within my areas of interest. And I assume your areas of interest, if you're watching this, especially watching it all the way up to the end. Hope you come back and check it out again. Subscribe. Check out if you listen to podcasts and that's more convenient for you, Political Dharma is also a podcast on various platforms, including Apple and Spotify and several others. So check that out and come back and check us out again. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and don't miss an exciting episode of this series. Thanks, and see you next time. Bye.
With ease, I see the chains are breaking. We gained our focus, the moves we're making will prove to determine our self-worth as a passenger on this vehicle Earth.